My husband's affair partner sent me a video of them together with a note. He calls you boring. Should I send you the rest? I stared at my phone in the grocery store parking lot. The video was 8 seconds long, just enough to know it was real. Just enough to see Felix kissing someone who wasn't me. I sat there for 30 minutes while my ice cream melted in the trunk, replaying those 8 seconds until I had every detail memorized. The way he touched her face, the hotel room wallpaper, the timestamp showing it was taken last Tuesday when he'd told me he was working late. When I finally drove home, Felix was making dinner like nothing had happened, humming while he chopped vegetables for the stir-fry I'd requested yesterday. He kissed my forehead when I walked in, asked how my day was, and complained about traffic on the expressway. So casual. So normal. Like he hadn't just destroyed 6 years of marriage. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said my day was fine and put the groceries away, including the melted ice cream I dumped straight into the trash. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, waiting for her to send more. She didn't. The silence was worse than anything she could have sent. I lay awake next to Felix, listening to him breathe peacefully while I counted every lie he'd probably told me over the past few months. The late meetings, the weekend golf trips, the new cologne he claimed his coworker recommended. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I needed to know everything first. Who she was. How long this had been going on. What exactly he'd told her about me. Whether boring was the worst thing he'd said or just the preview. I created a fake email account during my lunch break and sent her a message. You're right. I am boring. Tell me more. She responded within an hour. Her name was Violet. She worked in his office building, different company, same floor. They'd been together for 9 months. She attached screenshots of their texts. Hundreds of them. Him complaining about our marriage. Saying I'd let myself go after we had our daughter. That I never wanted to do anything spontaneous anymore. That I was too focused on being a mom and forgot how to be a wife. Each message felt like a knife, but I kept reading. I needed to see all of it. Then I found something interesting. In one text, Felix mentioned using our joint savings for a surprise weekend getaway with her to Napa Valley. The amount, $3,800. I pulled up our bank statements. The withdrawal was there, labeled business conference. I scrolled back through 6 months of statements. There were 4 more just like it. A weekend in Denver, a trip to Austin, 2 separate Chicago visits, all labeled as work expenses or business conferences. I sat at my kitchen table while my daughter napped upstairs, hands shaking, adding up the numbers. Over $18,000 in 6 months. Money we'd been saving for a down payment on a house. Money I'd been contributing to by working overtime shifts at the hospital. Money he'd stolen while I sacrificed time with our daughter to build our future. That's when my phone buzzed. Another message from Violet. Want to meet for coffee tomorrow? I have something else to show you. Something you need to see before you make any decisions. I agreed to meet her at a cafe downtown the next afternoon. I told Felix I was meeting my friend Natalie for lunch. He barely looked up from his laptop, just mumbled something about having fun. I wondered if he was texting Violet right then, making plans for their next hotel visit. The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Violet was already there, sitting at a corner table. She was younger than I expected, maybe 26 or 27. Pretty in that effortless way some women manage without seeming to try. She waved when she saw me, like we were actually friends meeting for coffee instead of what this really was. I sat down across from her, my hands gripping my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white. She didn't waste time with small talk. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a text conversation between her and Felix from this morning. He'd told her he loved her, that he was going to leave me soon, that he just needed to figure out the right timing because of our daughter. My stomach dropped. But that's not what you need to see, Violet said, scrolling to a different conversation. This is. The messages were between Felix and someone named Harrison. They were discussing something called Project Clearwater. Numbers, large numbers, transfers to offshore accounts, references to clients who couldn't know about certain transactions. I don't understand, I said. Violet leaned forward. Your husband isn't just cheating on you. He's embezzling from his company. Has been for over a year. Harrison is his business partner. They've been moving money through shell companies, skimming from client accounts. I found all of this on his laptop last month when he left it open at my apartment. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I'm not the villain here, she said. I thought I was dating a single guy going through a divorce. He told me you two had been separated for months, that you were just waiting until after the holidays to make it official for your daughter's sake. I didn't know he was lying until 3 weeks ago when I saw him posting family photos on Facebook with you and your daughter at some pumpkin patch. All these captions about his beautiful family and how blessed he felt. She pulled out a folder from her bag and pushed it across the table. I've been documenting everything since I found out. Bank records, emails, text messages, everything. I'm done being used. And I'm guessing you are too. I opened the folder, page after page of evidence. Transfers totaling over $400,000. Client names I recognized from Felix's work dinners. Emails discussing how to hide the transactions from the company's auditors. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing, Violet said. I just thought you should know what kind of man you're married to before you decide what to do next. I already gave copies of everything to the FBI. They've been investigating for 2 weeks. Felix doesn't know yet, but they're planning to arrest him next month. She stood up, gathering her things. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I never meant to be part of destroying anyone's marriage. I was just stupid enough to believe his lies. She left me sitting there with the folder, my coffee growing cold, my entire world shifting beneath me. I drove home in a daze. Felix was already back from work, playing with our daughter Zoe in the living room. She was giggling as he chased her around the couch, both of them completely oblivious to the fact that everything was about to implode. I tucked the folder into my desk drawer and tried to act normal through dinner. Felix talked about his day, some presentation he'd given that went well. He asked about my lunch with Natalie. I lied and said it was nice. We'd discussed her upcoming vacation. He didn't suspect a thing. That night, after Zoe was asleep, I sat in our home office and went through every document in the folder. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Felix hadn't just been embezzling from his company. He'd taken out a second mortgage on our house without telling me. He'd maxed out 3 credit cards in my name that I didn't even know existed. He'd cashed out my retirement account and forged my signature on the withdrawal forms. Our entire financial life was a house of cards about to collapse. I needed help. Real help. I couldn't do this alone. The next morning, I called my brother Garrett. He's a lawyer, specializes in financial crimes. I drove to his office during my lunch break and laid everything out for him. He went pale reading through the documents. "This is bad," he said finally. "Really bad. If the FBI is already investigating, Felix is going to prison, no question. The forgery alone could get him 10 years. The embezzlement could add another 15 on top of that." "What about me?" I asked. "What about Zoe?" Garrett leaned back in his chair, thinking. "You need to protect yourself financially. Immediately. File for divorce before the indictment comes down. Otherwise, you could be liable for his debts. The creditors will come after everything, including your assets. You need to separate yourself legally from him as fast as possible." He started making calls while I sat there, numb. By the end of the day, I had a divorce attorney, a financial planner, and a meeting scheduled with the FBI for the following week. I went home that night and looked at Felix across the dinner table. He was telling Zoe some story about a funny thing that happened at work, making her laugh with his animated voices. To anyone watching, we looked like a normal, happy family. I wondered how I'd missed all the signs. Or maybe I hadn't missed them. Maybe I'd just been too busy working double shifts to save for a house we'd never buy, too exhausted raising our daughter to notice my husband was destroying our lives. 3 days later, I met with the FBI agents. They asked if I'd known anything about Felix's activities. I showed them my bank statements, my work schedule, everything proving I'd been completely in the dark. They seemed to believe me, but said I'd likely be called to testify when the case went to trial. One of the agents, a woman named Agent Reeves, pulled me aside as I was leaving. "I've been doing this 15 years, she said. Seen a lot of spouses in your position. Most of them knew something was off but didn't want to face it. You genuinely seem blindsided. That actually works in your favor. Makes it clear you weren't complicit." She handed me her card. "When we arrest him, it's going to be traumatic. Especially for your daughter. Make sure you have support lined up. Family, friends, a therapist. This is going to get ugly before it gets better." I filed for divorce the next day. Had the papers delivered to Felix at his office. I'll never forget the moment he walked through the door that evening. His face was red, his hands shaking as he held the envelope. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. Zoe was at my mom's house. I'd planned it that way, knowing this conversation wouldn't be pretty. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Are you insane?" he yelled. "We can talk about whatever's bothering you. We can go to counseling. You don't just blow up a marriage because you're having some kind of crisis." I laughed, actually laughed. The audacity of him acting like I was the problem. "I know about Violet," I said. His face went white. "I know about the money you stole from our savings. I know about the second mortgage. I know about the credit cards you opened in my name. And I know about the $400,000 you and Harrison embezzled from your company." He sank into a chair, all the color draining from his face. "How did you—" he started, then stopped. "Violet gave me everything," I said. Felt guilty about being the other woman. Funny thing is, she thought she was doing me a favor. Turns out she was. Felix's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You're ruining everything," he hissed. "Do you have any idea what this is going to do to us? To Zoe?" "No," I said. "You ruined everything. You stole from me, from your company, from our daughter's future. I'm just making sure you don't take us down with you." He tried to argue, to explain, to make excuses. I didn't listen. I'd already heard enough lies to last a lifetime. He moved out that weekend. Garrett helped me file restraining orders to keep him from accessing any remaining joint accounts. Within 2 weeks, the FBI arrested Felix at his office. It made the local news. His company released a statement about cooperating fully with the investigation and terminating his employment immediately. My phone exploded with texts and calls from friends, neighbors, distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to know if I'd known, if I'd been involved, if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I was barely holding it together, but I had to, for Zoe. Explaining to a 5-year-old why Daddy wasn't living with us anymore was the hardest conversation I've ever had. She cried and asked if it was her fault. I held her and promised it wasn't, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to face consequences, but that both Daddy and I still loved her very much. I didn't tell her about the cheating, or the stealing, or the fact that her father was facing 25 years in federal prison. She'd learn all of that eventually, but she didn't need to know it at 5. Felix's parents blamed me, said I should have stood by their son, that every couple has problems, that I was being vindictive and cruel. They hired him an expensive defense attorney and started a smear campaign against me on social media, painting me as a gold digger who'd trapped their son and was now abandoning him in his time of need. I blocked them, blocked everyone connected to Felix's family. I couldn't deal with their delusions on top of everything else. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Felix tried to claim I'd known about the embezzlement, that I'd encouraged it. His lawyer painted me as materialistic, always wanting more money for renovations and vacations. They tried to use my overtime shifts against me, claiming I was obsessed with earning more. My lawyer destroyed their arguments with bank records showing every penny I'd earned had gone into our joint savings, the savings Felix had stolen. With work emails showing I'd requested time off for family trips that Felix had canceled last minute, always claiming work emergencies that were probably rendezvous with Violet. The judge wasn't sympathetic to Felix's case, especially after the FBI presented their evidence in a preliminary hearing. The embezzlement charges were solid. The forgery was undeniable. Felix had even used my retirement account money to pay for a vacation to the Bahamas with Violet. My divorce was finalized 4 months after I'd filed. I got full custody of Zoe, primary claim to our house once it was no longer under criminal asset investigation, and zero financial responsibility for Felix's crimes. The judge ordered Felix to pay child support, though I knew I'd never see a penny of it while he was in prison. Felix's trial started the following spring. I was called to testify about the forged documents, the unauthorized accounts, the money he'd hidden from me. Sitting on that witness stand, looking at the man I'd built a life with, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a strange emptiness where love used to live. He was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 20 years in federal prison. Violet testified too, talked about how Felix had manipulated her, lied about his marriage, used her apartment to hide documents from the investigation. She cried on the stand. I almost felt bad for her. She'd been a victim in this too, just a different kind. After the trial, I ran into her in the courthouse hallway. We looked at each other for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she said finally, "for all of it." "I know," I replied. "Me too." We went our separate ways. I never saw her again. Life slowly started to rebuild itself. I took a new position at the hospital with better hours so I could spend more time with Zoe. My mom helped with childcare when I had late shifts. Garrett checked in every week, making sure we were okay financially and emotionally. Zoe started therapy. Her counselor said she was processing the divorce well, all things considered. She'd asked to visit Felix in prison once. I drove her there, sat in that horrible visiting room while she talked to her father through plexiglass. She asked him why he'd done bad things. He tried to explain, but what explanation could satisfy a 6-year-old? She didn't ask to visit again after that. I threw myself into work and being the best mother I could be. Date nights became movie nights with Zoe. Romantic dinners became pizza parties at our dining table. I wasn't sure I'd ever trust another man again, and honestly, I was okay with that. I had my daughter. I had my career. I had my sanity back. Felix's parents kept trying to maintain a relationship with Zoe through letters and gifts. I allowed it, though I supervised everything. They were her grandparents, after all. It wasn't Zoe's fault their son was a criminal. The first year after the trial was the hardest. I had to completely rebuild our finances from scratch. The second mortgage Felix had taken out meant we were underwater on the house. I couldn't afford the payments on my salary alone, even with the better position at the hospital. I ended up selling it at a loss. We moved into a smaller apartment across town, closer to my mom's place. Zoe cried the night we left, mourning the only home she'd ever known. I cried too, alone in my new bedroom after she fell asleep, grieving everything we'd lost. But slowly, we adjusted. The new apartment was cozy. We could walk to the park. Zoe made friends with kids in the building. My mom came over twice a week for dinner, bringing groceries and helping with homework. I started seeing a therapist myself. Dr. Monroe was patient, kind, never judged me for the anger I still carried. She helped me understand that what Felix had done wasn't a reflection of my worth, that being boring wasn't a character flaw, that working hard and being a good mother were things to be proud of, not ashamed of. In our sessions, I talked about the guilt I felt, how I kept replaying moments from our marriage, looking for signs I'd missed. The nights Felix came home late smelling like hotel soap, the way he'd started password protecting his phone, how he'd stopped initiating intimacy, claiming he was too stressed from work. All the red flags I'd explained away because I'd trusted him. Dr. Monroe asked me once if I thought I'd ever trust anyone fully again. "I don't know," I admitted. "How do you trust someone when you've learned that people can lie to your face for months, years even, without flinching?" "You start small," she said. "You trust yourself first. Trust your instincts. Then you learn to trust others incrementally, watching for consistency between their words and actions." It sounded good in theory. In practice, it was exhausting. 1 year after Felix's sentencing, I received a letter from the company he'd embezzled from. They'd recovered most of the stolen money through asset seizures and insurance claims. As a gesture of goodwill, and because I'd cooperated fully with the investigation, they were sending me a check for $10,000. Compensation for the emotional distress and financial hardship caused by their employees' crimes. I stared at that check for a long time. Blood money, in a way, but also a lifeline. I deposited it into a college fund for Zoe. She deserved something good to come from this nightmare. Around the same time, I started getting messages from other women whose husbands had worked with Felix, wives of men who'd been questioned during the investigation. They wanted to know if I'd known, if I'd suspected, how I'd coped with the betrayal. Most of them were still with their husbands, Men who'd been peripherally involved but had cooperated with authorities in exchange for immunity. They couldn't understand why I'd left Felix so quickly, why I hadn't stood by him. I don't judge them for their choices. Everyone processes trauma differently, but I also didn't owe them explanations for mine. I stopped responding to the messages eventually. Let them think what they wanted. 2 years after the divorce, I met someone. His name was Raymond. He was a teacher at Zoe's school, recently divorced himself. We bonded over single parenthood and the challenges of rebuilding life after betrayal. Our first conversation happened at a parent-teacher conference. He was Zoe's art teacher, enthusiastic about her creativity and attention to detail. After discussing her progress, he asked if I'd like to grab coffee sometime, just to talk about navigating single parenthood in the school community. I almost said no, almost made up an excuse about being too busy. But something about his genuine smile, the way he actually listened when I talked about Zoe, made me agree. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into dinners when Zoe was at my mom's. It was slow, careful. I made him meet Garrett before I'd even consider making things official. I ran background checks. I verified every story he told me about his ex-wife, his job history, his finances. Garrett thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was, but I wasn't going to be blindsided again. Raymond was patient, understanding. He showed me his bank statements without me asking, said he wanted me to feel secure. He introduced me to his parents early on, made it clear he wasn't hiding me. He was consistent, reliable, showed up when he said he would. 6 months into dating, he asked if I'd ever trust him completely. I don't know, I answered honestly. Felix taught me that trust is something I might never fully give again. Raymond nodded. I can work with that, he said, as long as you keep trying. And I was, trying, every day. It helped that Raymond had his own scars. His ex-wife had cheated on him with his best friend. He understood betrayal in a way most people didn't. We compared notes sometimes. Dark humor about the lies we'd believed, the futures we'd planned that had evaporated. Zoe liked him. That mattered most. She'd been so careful around him at first, protective of me in a way no 7-year-old should have to be. But Raymond won her over with his patience, his willingness to sit through endless tea parties and read the same bedtime stories 5 nights in a row. 3 years after Felix went to prison, I received a letter from him. His first parole hearing was coming up. He wanted to apologize. Said he'd found religion in prison, was a changed man, wanted a chance to be a father to Zoe again. I read the letter 3 times, then threw it away. Some people don't deserve second chances. Garrett disagreed, said everyone deserves the possibility of redemption, that keeping Zoe from her father might damage her in the long run. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being cruel. But every time I thought about letting Felix back into our lives, I remembered those bank statements, the forged signatures, the lies, the $18,000 he'd stolen while I worked overtime so we could build a future. I remembered being boring, being blamed for letting myself go, being told I forgot how to be a wife because I was too busy being a mother. No. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. Felix's parole was denied, wouldn't be eligible again for another 4 years. Part of me felt guilty for the relief that washed over me when Garrett called with the news. Part of me knew I should want Zoe to have a relationship with her father. But the bigger part of me, the part that had held our daughter while she cried herself to sleep for months after Felix left, felt only gratitude for 4 more years of peace. Zoe was 9 when she asked if Daddy was ever coming home. We were making pancakes on a Saturday morning. Raymond was there too, flipping them while Zoe and I mixed the batter. I don't know, sweetheart, I told her, but whether he does or doesn't, we're going to be okay. We've always been okay. She looked at Raymond, then back at me. Can Raymond be my dad instead? My heart stopped. Raymond's spatula clattered against the pan. Honey, I started, but she interrupted. I know he's my real dad, but he's not here. Raymond is. Raymond comes to my school plays and helps with my homework and doesn't make you cry. Can't he just be my dad? I looked at Raymond. He had tears in his eyes. That's up to your mom, he said softly. And something we'd need to discuss with a lot of people first. We did discuss it. With therapists, with Garrett, with my mom. Everyone had opinions. Some thought it was too soon, that we should wait until Zoe was older to make such a big decision. Others thought if it's what Zoe wanted, we should honor that. In the end, we waited. Told Zoe that Raymond was already like a dad to her in all the ways that mattered, that we didn't need paperwork to make it official, that when she was older, if she still wanted it, we could revisit the conversation. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Raymond proposed on Zoe's 10th birthday. Small, intimate, at our favorite restaurant. Zoe was thrilled. She'd been asking for months when Raymond would become her real dad, when we'd be a real family. I said yes, but made it clear we were doing this slow. Long engagement, premarital counseling, complete financial transparency. Raymond agreed to everything without hesitation. We spent a year in counseling before the wedding. Our therapist made us discuss everything: money, kids, expectations, past trauma, how we'd handle conflict. It was exhausting and necessary. I learned things about Raymond I hadn't known. He struggled with depression sometimes, legacy of his divorce. He had student loans from his master's degree that he'd been paying down for 8 years. He wanted more kids someday, but would be okay if I didn't. He learned things about me too. How I'd wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and check our bank accounts, just to make sure the money was still there. How I had panic attacks when he was late coming home without calling. How I needed constant reassurance that he wasn't hiding things from me. Our therapist said we were doing the work, that most couples avoided these hard conversations until they became problems. She thought we had a good chance of making it. We got married a year later in my mom's backyard. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Zoe was the flower girl, beaming in her pink dress. Garrett walked me down the aisle. My mom cried through the entire ceremony. Raymond's vows made me cry too. He promised to be patient with my fear, to show me his phone whenever I asked, to be honest even when it was hard, to love Zoe like his own, to never make me feel boring. That last part broke me. I hadn't told him about that word, about how it had haunted me for years, but somehow he knew. I never told Raymond about the video that started everything, about meeting Violet in that cafe. Some parts of my story were just mine to carry. Felix sent a letter the week of my wedding, congratulated me, said he was happy I'd found someone, that he hoped Raymond treated me better than he had, that he was sorry for everything he'd put me through. I almost believed he meant it. Almost. But then I remembered that Felix had always been good with words, good at saying what people wanted to hear. Actions were what mattered, and his actions had destroyed our family. I didn't respond to the letter. Life moved forward. Raymond adopted Zoe legally when she was 11, after Felix signed away his parental rights in exchange for reduced child support obligations. The hearing was quick, perfunctory. Felix appeared via video call from prison, said he thought it was best for Zoe to have a stable father figure. Watching him on that screen, older now, grayer, I felt nothing. The man I'd married had died years ago, if he'd ever really existed at all. Zoe started calling Raymond Dad that same day. It felt right. We built a good life. Raymond and I bought a small house when Zoe was 12. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. No hidden mortgages, no forged documents, just an honest home with an honest mortgage that we could actually afford. Zoe flourished. She joined the debate team, started painting seriously, made good friends. She talked about her father sometimes, the one in prison, but mostly she just lived her life. Raymond and I had our struggles. Money was tight sometimes on two teachers' salaries, mine from the hospital and his from the school. We argued about bills and household chores and whose turn it was to drive Zoe to activities, but we never lied to each other. That was our unbreakable rule. Even when the truth was hard, even when it would be easier to hide something, we told each other everything. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Felix was released on parole when Zoe was 15. He'd served 12 years of his 20-year sentence. Good behavior, completed every rehabilitation program available, found work at a halfway house teaching financial literacy, ironically enough. The notification came via email from the Victim Services Program. I stared at it for an hour before showing Raymond. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Scared," I admitted. "Angry. Worried he'll try to mess with Zoe's head. What do you want to do?" "I don't know." We sat with it for a few days before Felix reached out, a letter asking if he could see Zoe. Supervised. Wherever I wanted, however I wanted. He just wanted a chance to apologize to her in person. I left the decision up to Zoe. She was old enough to choose. She thought about it for 3 weeks before agreeing to one supervised lunch. I drove her to the restaurant, a casual place downtown with big windows so I could see inside from my car. Raymond offered to come, but I needed to do this alone. This was my daughter. My choice to let her father back in, even just a little. I watched them through the window. Felix looked old. Prison had aged him in ways that weren't just physical. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Zoe sat across from him, her posture stiff. They talked for 90 minutes. I saw him cry. Saw Zoe's face remain neutral, guarded. When she came out, she wasn't crying, just thoughtful. "How was it?" I asked. "Weird," she said. "He's different. Older. He talked a lot about being sorry, about how prison changed him. He asked about school and my friends and if I was happy." "Are you?" I asked. "Happy?" "Yeah, Mom. I really am." She looked at me then. Really looked at me. "I know what he did. I'm old enough now to understand it all. The cheating, the stealing, everything. And I know you protected me from the worst of it when I was little. Thank you for that." I hugged her tight. This daughter who'd grown up too fast in some ways, but who'd emerged stronger for it. Zoe started meeting Felix once a month, always in public places, always with clear time limits. She said it was important to her to give him a chance, but that she went into it with realistic expectations. I never met with Felix myself. Didn't want to. Didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Raymond and I continued building our life. We celebrated our 5th anniversary with a weekend trip to the mountains, Zoe staying with my mom. It was the first time we'd been truly alone together in months. That night, over dinner, he admitted something. "It's exhausting sometimes," he said. "Having to prove myself constantly. Showing you bank statements every month, calling when I'm going to be even 10 minutes late. Never being fully trusted even after years of doing everything right." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he replied. "I knew who I was marrying. I just hope someday you'll believe I'm not him." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm trying," I said. "Every day I'm trying." "I know," he said. "That's enough." And maybe it was. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Keep trying. Keep choosing to trust even when every instinct screams to protect ourselves. Keep building something new on the ruins of what came before. Zoe graduated high school with honors 3 years later, got accepted to a prestigious university for business and ethics. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Felix came to her graduation. I'd given permission, figuring she'd earned the right to have both her fathers there for this milestone. He sat in the back. Didn't try to talk to me. just watched his daughter walk across that stage and receive her diploma, tears streaming down his face. I felt something then. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe understanding. He'd missed so much, lost so much. That was his consequence to carry. After the ceremony, Zoe introduced Felix to Raymond. It was the first time they'd met in person. Awkward, painful to watch. But they shook hands and made small talk about Zoe's future plans, her scholarship, her major. Two men who'd both been her father in different ways. Felix thanked Raymond, said he was grateful Zoe had someone who'd been there for her, that he knew he'd failed her, failed us both, and that Raymond had stepped up in ways he never had. It was probably the most honest thing Felix had ever said to me or anyone in our family. That night, Raymond held me while I cried for reasons I couldn't fully explain. "You did good," he whispered. "She turned out amazing despite everything." "Because of everything," I corrected. "She learned what not to accept from people, what she deserves." "Like her mom," Raymond said. "It took me 15 years, but yeah, like her mom." Zoe's now 20, thriving at university, dating someone who treats her well, who she brings home for holidays, and who passes all of her very high standards. She still sees Felix occasionally. Their relationship is cordial but distant. He's a part of her history, but not her present. She calls Raymond dad without hesitation, calls Felix by his first name. I'm 42 now, married to a good man who's never given me reason to doubt him, though I still check our bank accounts weekly. Old habits die hard, Dr. Monroe tells me. Maybe they never die at all. Maybe they just become part of who you are. Mom thinks I should let it go, move past it completely. She doesn't understand that some scars don't heal. They just become part of your story, part of what made you who you are. I never heard from Violet again after the trial. Sometimes I wonder what happened to her. If she ever found someone honest? If she thinks about those 9 months she spent with my husband, believing his lies? If she has trust issues now too? If she checks bank accounts and demands transparency and has panic attacks when her partner is late coming home? I hope she's okay. I hope she's happy. I hope she learned the same lessons I did without having to pay quite as high a price. Sometimes I think about that video. The one that changed everything. 8 seconds that destroyed a marriage and revealed a criminal and started me on a path I never expected to walk. I deleted it years ago, but I still remember every frame. The hotel wallpaper. The way he touched her face. The timestamp. Tuesday, 9:15 p.m. I'd been giving Zoe a bath at that exact moment. Reading her stories, tucking her into bed, being boring. Felix tried to apologize properly once about 5 years into his sentence. Wrote me a long letter about his regrets and how he'd changed and how he wished things had been different. How prison had given him time to reflect on what he'd destroyed. How he understood now that I'd been a good wife, a good mother, and he'd been too selfish to appreciate it. I wrote back once, kept it short. I hope you've changed, for Zoe's sake, for your own sake. But I don't need your apologies. I needed your honesty 15 years ago. It's too late now. He never wrote again. Last month, on a random Tuesday, I was cleaning out old files and found the folder Violet had given me all those years ago. All that evidence. Those bank statements and emails and text messages that had proven what Felix really was. I'd kept it all this time, hidden in a box in the back of our closet. Insurance, maybe? Or just an inability to let go completely. I burned it in our backyard fire pit, watched the pages curl and blacken and turn to ash. 14 years of evidence, of proof, of validation for my choices. Gone. Raymond watched from the kitchen window. When I came inside, he asked if I was okay. "Yeah," I said, "I really am." And I meant it. Some people ask if I ever regret how it all went down, if I wish I'd confronted Felix differently, given him a chance to explain, tried harder to save the marriage, gone to counseling, worked through it. I don't. He made his choices. I made mine. We both lived with the consequences. The only thing I regret is not seeing it sooner, not trusting my instincts when things felt off. But I was young and in love and believed people were who they pretended to be. I thought marriage vows meant something. I thought the father of my child wouldn't steal from us to fund an affair. I know better now. The world taught me better. Zoe called last week. Asked if I'd ever tell her the whole story. Everything that happened with Felix. Not just the sanitized version I'd given her over the years, but the real story. The affair, the stolen money, the fake email I'd created to talk to Violet. All of it. Some of it, I said. When you're ready. When it won't hurt as much. Does it still hurt you? She asked. Not like it used to, I admitted. Now it's just a part of my story. The part that taught me I was stronger than I thought. The part that led me to Raymond and to the life we have now. I love you, Mom, she said. I love you too, sweetheart. After we hung up, I sat on my porch and watched the sunset. Raymond was inside making dinner. Our dog was asleep at my feet. Zoe was miles away at college, building her own life, making her own choices. Life was quiet, stable, good. It had taken years to get here. Years of therapy and lawyers and court dates and sleepless nights wondering how I'd pay the bills and raise my daughter alone. Years of learning to trust again, to open myself up to love again, to believe that not everyone was hiding something. But I'd done it. We'd done it. And that video that started everything, that 8-second clip of my husband kissing another woman with a note calling me boring, had been the beginning of the end of my old life. The life where I'd been asleep to the truth, where I'd accepted crumbs and called it love, where I'd worked myself to exhaustion for a future that was being stolen from me, and the beginning of something better. something real, something honest. I'm not boring anymore. Or maybe I am, and I've learned that boring is okay. Boring is stable. Boring is coming home every night to people who love you. Boring is honesty and consistency and trust. Boring is building a life that won't collapse the moment someone pulls the wrong thread. I'll take boring over exciting any day. Felix is out there somewhere, living his life on parole, working his job, trying to atone for his mistakes. I hope he's changed. I hope he's learned. For his sake and for anyone who might be foolish enough to trust him again. But that's not my concern anymore. My concern is this porch, this sunset, this man cooking dinner in my kitchen, this daughter thriving at college, this life we built from nothing, this family we chose. This is my story now. And boring or not, it's mine.